Welcome everybody to the Bockhanger and BYBROOK Community Consultation event this evening. I just wanted to let you all know that unfortunately Sharon Williams, Head of Housing at Ashford, has had to give her apologies for this evening. She desperately wanted to be here, but unfortunately she's not able to be here. So myself and other colleagues from Ashford Borough Council and the Kennington Community Council will lead you through the event this afternoon. Firstly, we just wanted to confirm to you all that we're hosting this consultation event today as a virtual session. One of the main factors in making this decision was the fact that COVID is very much still prevalent in our local communities, and we did not feel that at the time it was appropriate to host a face-to-face session and potentially put members of the community and staff at risk of infection. I want to reassure you all that this event this afternoon is not the only time that you as local residents of Kennington, and in particular the BYBROOK and Bockhanger wards, will have the opportunity to feed back and comment upon the information that we will soon be sharing with you. What you see next is by no means a done deal. To get to this point, we have already hosted a stakeholder workshop, shared a resident survey, and from each of these consultation opportunities, we have gleaned a lot of views and a lot of information. We have pulled together a suggested proposal based upon what you as the community have identified as key priorities. Our proposal is our suggestion about how to unlock housing revenue account funding, council house funding, to help deliver for your local community. These are the same proposals and line of thought that we intended to share with you on the 14th of March in 2020, just before the pandemic stopped us in our tracks. Today is an in-principle suggestion about how to bring forward a scheme that will include the provision of a community space using the housing revenue account funding. Today is not about agreeing the detail of a final scheme, but a platform to enter into discussions with Kennington Community Council and you as residents about what will meet your local needs, to give more shape and inform any further decisions about the use of the former community hall site. Following the outcome of today and any additional feedback over the next 4 weeks, the process will move forward to continue, report and engage with you all about a more detailed plan. Any decisions moving forward will not be based just on the content of the chat or the question posed to the panel today. It will be a consideration of all the feedback. We truly believe that our offer of a virtual event today will have offered the opportunity for many more residents to attend, and this has certainly been the experience in other meetings that we have held recently. The event is being recorded, as I have said, so there will be plenty of opportunity to revisit these slides and the context if you need to ask any questions at a later time. So a warm welcome to everybody who has been able to join our consultation event this afternoon. I am Rebecca Smith and I'm the Housing Operations Manager at Ashford Borough Council, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity today to resurrect and move forward the work within your local community that unfortunately we had to stall due to the pandemic. This afternoon we will take you through a set of slides that will remind everybody about the background to why we are here today, the work that has been undertaken since May 2018. We will also share our proposal and principles that is one option to provide a flexible community space in the Bockhanger and BYBROOK wards. Presenting today will be representatives from Ashford Borough Council across a range of services that include housing, culture and property, alongside representatives from Kennington Community Council.
Rebecca, sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you to pause for a moment? The reason being that we are relaying this into Spearpoint Pavilion, who I'm told do now have the visuals, but they're picking up Radio 2.
Not from me, they're not.
No, not from you, they're not, but it's the setup there. I'm just wondering if you can pause for a minute or two, and if they come through it, that's fine, but if after a minute or two it's not working.
Okay.
They've now gone out, so if we could just pause a minute or two, and if people listening from home would bear with us, but we were trying to have a setup for people who don't have internet connection, and unfortunately we were using brand new equipment that some of which well, some of it hasn't arrived, but we've borrowed equipment as well, so we've not had a technical rehearsal.
Okay, Mark, do you want to put something in the chat just to firm that up, so in case anybody new joins and wonders while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any news, Alan?
Not yet. If we can bear with me just for a moment. And then...
Okay. I presume everybody else that's online can hear us okay?
Because we can't see them, you
yeah,
don't get confidence. Okay, it's all good now. Thank you very much,
good.
Rebecca, for pausing for that.
That's fine. Okay, I'll pick up where I left off. So we've got representation today from across various sections within the council, along with our representatives from Kennington Community Council. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes of your time just to run through some housekeeping for the event today. So myself and Mark James, who's on the call as well today, have been working closely with Sharon along with other colleagues from the Borough Council and Kennington Community Council on this project, and we're really pleased to be here today and share an update with you about where we are. So the event today is a Teams live event, so in essence this does mean that aside from those presenting, all other attendees will be muted. Any questions or comments can be put to our presenters via the chat function. And Mark, I believe, has put some information in that section already. So these will be picked up at the end of each segment and at the end of our session. So please don't worry, if you've got any comments or feedback, we will pick those up and respond to those accordingly. It will feel like there's a lot of information to digest today and for you all to consider. So a copy of the slides, the summary speaker notes, a short survey and the recording from this session will be available online in the coming days. And that should be back on the portal where you've accessed your attendee link this afternoon. We also have a dedicated email inbox, so you can send us any feedback through to that as well if you wish, and the details of that will be available on the last slide. We really do appreciate your feedback, and if you need a printed copy of the information, please contact us using the dedicated email and we can provide that information for you at the earliest possible time. So I'm going to hand over to Mark and he's going to talk you through the background. Oops, too far ahead.
Thank you, Rebecca. So back in May 2018, residents of Bockhanger, BYBROOK and Kennington submitted a petition to the Borough Council calling for Bockhanger to have a new community centre. This petition was subsequently debated by Ashford Borough Council in July 2019, and an agreement was reached that we as the Borough Council and Kennington Community Council would work together to develop an appropriate scheme for the community. In 2019, in the November of that year, a stakeholder event took place with a range of representation, including local businesses, Kent Police, GPs, health and faith groups, all of whom came together to discuss the ideas for the future development of the site. A postal survey was sent to all the properties in the consultation area, and this was identified by Kennington Community Council, including those who'd been working to help shape the direction of this project. And from these 600 responses that were received, which was a great response to all to our call for more information and feedback. Moving on to the next slide, this is feedback and priorities that were identified from the original survey. So from the consultation process, including the responses from the survey and working with Kennington Community Council, it generated and provided really useful insights and a great platform to truly understand the needs of the community and to how we can best take these forward and action them accordingly together. With regards to who responded to the survey, the response rate was really high. However, it was evident from the responses that the views of 18 to 44-year-olds were underrepresented in the findings, and we're taking steps to engage groups within that age bracket. It is important that the decisions and the outcomes from the consultation moving forward benefit the whole of the community, and the following few slides will go over some of the key points from those survey responses.
Thanks, Mark. So just bear with me while I change so you can see more. Right, so I'm just going to talk through about some of the feedback from the survey, and one of the questions that was posed was about the use of the old Bockhanger Community Centre. So this slide provides information from the survey about what that community centre was used for, and from the image and the text you can see that those who did respond, 60% indicated that they did not use the space. So why is this significant and important for us to highlight? Going forward, it's really important that the decisions about the provision of a community space must meet the needs of the whole community currently, whilst considering the reasons behind why the old centre did not perform as it should have. What we don't want to have is a space that is underutilised and that becomes a blight in your local community. We do really have to consider what the purposes of a new community space would be, and this is considered with suggestions as we move forward through the slide. Next, we looked at aspirations for the whole community and what came out of that survey. So in addition to responses about the use of the previous community centre and following the thread about how to ensure that any replacement of community space or provision meets an unmet need or aspiration, we have this slide, which identifies the key aspirations from within the survey feedback. What is important locally and how can a flexible community space, amongst other things, assist to deliver against these? It has to be a balanced approach and a set of deliverable objectives against each of these asks from the local community, and one that can benefit a whole community. So we've tried to piece all those aspirations together and look to how the flexible community space can help to assist and meet some of those identified needs. In addition to aspirations, we also looked at some of the key comments that came back from the survey, and we've put some of these online for you. I appreciate they may be difficult to read, but these will be available as we've said. But just this slide really captures and reinforces the identified key messages and feedback from throughout the whole consultation process to date. So we have messages on there saying things like it should remain as an open space, no more housing, better play facilities, lack of affordable housing. So it's just picking up the varied tackling loneliness, providing support for residents, older residents, particularly those living alone. So it's how do we capture and how do we deliver against all those aspirations and meet the needs of that whole community? And that's the important thing that we need to focus on. I'm now going to hand you back to Mark, and he's going to talk you through some of the survey headlines. You're on mute, Mark.
I'm the first one to do it. I'm so sorry. That's bound to happen. Sorry, everybody. Right, to summarise, we've outlined some of the headlines from the 600 survey responses received from the consultation back in November 19. We do need to recognise that the survey was taken a while ago, and your feedback to this event and in the month that sort of follows may show that things have moved on and that priorities have changed, but this is what we've based the response upon thus far. So lack of affordable housing, we are proposing a housing revenue account. Forgive me if I use the abbreviation HRA at any point, that stands for housing revenue account. An affordable housing led scheme will be what's proposed. The type and the number of affordable housing homes is subject to many variables, such as grant funding. We obtain grant funding from Homes England if we have to bid for that, so it's not necessarily a given. The cost of materials, you may have seen lots of things in the news about whether or not the cost of materials and shortage of labour are going up, but simply put, for a housing to lead the scheme, it will be an affordable housing scheme which will incorporate a flexible community space. That really is the only option we have, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. The next headline is a development and infrastructure strain. The survey identified that overdevelopment of an area had an impact on the roads and access to GPs, for example. Another headline was the lack of facilities for teenagers. Now, in agreement, this area is lacking suitable provision of activity facilities for teens. However, we're pleased to advise you shortly you'll hear from our colleague Alison Oates, who will share news about the CHESS project, which is very much linked to this particular headline. Low quality public space and lack of areas play areas for children. Again, in agreement with this, a colleague Amanda Scott will talk in some detail about the plans for play park provision in the surrounding area of the site. Crime and antisocial behaviour. This is continually addressed and managed through our housing management service across the whole of Kennington, and we have good links with other agencies to minimise the impact and reduce the occurrence of antisocial behaviour. But having initiatives and projects like chess and a better use of the overall site will have a positive impact and reduce anxiety about crime and antisocial behaviour in the area. Another headline is the lack of social activities for all age groups, especially older residents, and this point goes back to getting the balance right for the whole community. A new community space and the associated activity or use has to benefit all age groups. It's important also to recognise, and we'll share with you further on what community facilities already exist close to and around this local area, so that any new facility complements what's already available. And of course the headline around lots of traffic. Kennington Community Council has asked us to advise that there is a project underway in relation to traffic calming, and it's hoped that this may help to reduce the speed of traffic, if not reduce the amount of traffic that is travelling through your local area. I'm going to go straight on to the next slide, if that's okay. This relates to capital funding, and it's obviously very important when delivering a community space to consider how it's going to be paid for. In addition, in the current financial context, we're obviously still in a pandemic. That's one of the reasons why we're virtual today. And as a council, we're dealing with the results of anticipated lost income from things such as parking and rents. So therefore, there are financial pressures that definitely force us to be more creative in the way that we can make any community space happen. So to give you an idea, yes. Sorry,
we've just had a comment in the chat. Can we slow down? I think you and I are probably both guilty of rambling through our, because we're a bit, you know.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, just someone's just asked if we can slow down. That's fine. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you.
So to give you an idea of the challenge, this slide presents some scales which show how we will balance this equation of funding. Now, on the left-hand side of the scales, you have all of the costs connected with the delivery of a community space. So the costs of construction, for example, that's the main cost, kitting the building out so that it meets the desired requirements. On the right hand side, you have the question mark. And this is, of course, the conundrum. How will it be paid for? Some options are listed at the bottom of the slide. And as we said already, there isn't the ability within the council's general fund to deliver this project. And there's an argument that perhaps that might not be the best solution in any case, because in that scenario, residents in rural parishes are then kind of paying for the creation of this space if it was funded through the general fund. So is that appropriate or fair? There are no Section 106 developer funds to deliver the scheme, and Section 106 developer funds, for those who aren't aware, they're ring-fenced funds that the council receives from the completion of new developments for building new local infrastructure or for specific projects. And of course, there are limits on community fundraising. There's obviously borrowing, which is an option, and while it is an option, it does come with its own risks. So one potential solution, and as we say, realistically, the only solution on the table is for Ashford Borough Council to deliver a community space through its housing revenue account. Now, the housing revenue account, or HRA, as I mentioned earlier, it's a ring-fenced account within the council's general fund, and it's made up from the rents that are collected from the homes that we have in our stock. We could deliver the space as part of an affordable housing-led scheme that would benefit the area more generally, and of course provide much needed homes in Ashford, where we have nearly 1,500 people on our waiting lists at any given time. And to put that into context, you may be aware that we recently purchased the new quarter building in Ashford Town Centre, and that's over 100 units, and we still have 1,500 people on our waiting list. There is a real need for affordable housing. So that is the approach that we'd look to try and deliver here, given the constraints that we have. We would need to come up with a realistic design to put to the community for comment before anything was taken forward. So what we're proposing here is an in principle position of an affordable housing led scheme that will incorporate a community space that will provide the community space. Rebecca, should we go on to Len's slides and then take a look at questions after that? So if I hand over to our colleague Len Mayett, he will go through how you develop a successful business model for a community space.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about this sort of evolution of a community facility within your community, within your area. Very briefly, just say who I am. I'm Len Mayett. I work for Ashford Borough Council. I work in the council's culture, leisure and tourism department, and we work with a number of different community groups across the borough. Places like Repton Community Centre, Singleton Environment Centre. We also look after the Julie Rose Stadium, Stour Centre and Conningbrook Lakes Country Park, amongst other facilities. So as a team, we're quite used to looking after facilities and the different types of people and organisations that tend to run them and use them. So Mark and Rebecca have asked me to sort of talk briefly about different ways of managing facilities, because that becomes quite an important part of the process and the equation. I've listed on the slide three sort of general headings of different types of groups and organisations that can run this type of building. The first one is a third-party operator, someone like Freedom Leisure, who now run the Stour Centre and the Julie Rose and the Spear Point Pavilion. They are good organisations. They come with background and support and experience and sort of a lot of backroom services who can help support the running and the management of an organisation, which is a positive. However, they can be a little isolated from the main local community and perhaps not always fully representative in a particularly small area, as we are talking about with BYBROOK and Bockhanger, that they may not be most appropriate for running a facility in their space, but they would have experience and knowledge of running them in other areas. The second one I've listed is a trust or a local community management group, or sometimes called community interest companies, which is set up specifically to run a very specific facility for a very specific purpose. Those groups rely on volunteers, which is a number of people coming together, as many people do already for other activities, I'm sure, but they do require people's time and commitment to run facilities and to operate them. But they are very good at representing what the local people want and require and need, and understand those local people and communities. So they do have some benefits as well as some challenges to go with them. The third is something like a parish or a town council facility who run and operate facilities. They again require volunteers, but are structured organisations that can apply for external funds from other bodies and organisations to help not necessarily fund the day-to-day operation of any facility, but to help fund some of the events that may go within those organisations. Perhaps they don't always have as much experience of running other facilities. The third-party operator would be operating a number of facilities at any one time and can draw on different experiences and backgrounds, whereas a lone parish council, although they will have skills within that organisation, may not always have the same knowledge and breadth of experience of running other facilities. So there isn't necessarily one size will fit all, and it will be for the local community and others to decide which is going to be best to operate and run the facility that we're talking about here at the moment. But it is certainly pleasing to hear that Kennington Community Council are interested in operating this facility. They have already started work, I know, looking on a outline business plan for how the facility may operate, which until the building design is available is quite a difficult task for them to do. But they have started putting together some ideas around income generation and costs of operation that will need to be considered. Perhaps now is a good time to move on to the next slide, if that's possible. Thank you. So another sort of set of scales, as Mark alluded to earlier, around the ongoing costs of running a facility. It's going to need staff, it's going to need heating, there are things like VAT to pay, community charge, business rates as they're called for sort of commercial operations, building maintenance, a sinking fund for ongoing repairs, all the kinds of things that we all need to sort of look after in our own homes, etc., need to be thought about for running this kind of facility, along with some sort of quite detailed responsibilities for health and safety, for data protection and all kinds of other sort of health and safety related issues that whoever operates the building has to take very seriously, and to be prepared to fund the cost of those extra activities and services that they need to reply. So to make the scales balance, there needs to be income coming in to pay for all of that, which, as the slide suggests, that could be bookings from a community room. If there's a business hub, people coming in to use that. If there's a refreshment offer within the facility, then there's income from that. General meetings and bookings. And as I mentioned earlier, there is the possibility of generating income from grant funding, although normally that doesn't come direct for day-to-day operating costs. That's usually for very specific events, activities or programs that people within the community may wish to offer. Now, all of that, and this is a very sort of quick introduction to some of these issues, but all those things can seem quite daunting. But ourselves within the council have got experience of working in these types of facilities and with other groups, so we're here to help. Colleagues at Kent County Council also have similar experience and they can provide background and support. And there's certainly other independent organisations, this will be in the notes at the end of the meeting, but a company called Community Matters, who do this kind of support work of these kinds of projects and programmes across the country. So again, they come with a lot of knowledge and experience. So it's just a brief introduction and flavour for the types of operating models that may be appropriate and the kind of ongoing financial costs that need to be considered. I'm happy to take any questions now myself or later at the appropriate time in the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Len. Really appreciate your input and your time today, and for the support that you've given to the project so far. And I know you've been working closely with Kennington Community Council to give them the appropriate advice and guidance. That's really appreciated. I'm not sure if we've got any questions or comments in the chat, Mark. Is there anything that we need to respond to?
We have had one comment from Noel Hall, or Noel Hall. I apologise. Thank you for your question. The question is, will the shops be knocked down and rebuilt? I don't know who on the panel may be sort of best to look into that. I know my colleague Giles Holloway has been sort of looking potentially at what the implications may be if we were to go with an affordable housing led scheme. Giles, are you there, and would we be in a position to kind of just sort of give a preliminary response to that question?
Yes, thank you, Mark. This concerns if there's not enough firm information, but essentially we've been concentrating on how we can provide the community provision and what kind of space could be provided. The relocation of the shops does come at a cost, and a number of assumptions have had to be made, and because of that it's very difficult to see that being a viable possibilities. But because we've made the assumptions, some assumptions will become known facts at a later date, and that can be reassessed. But at the moment we've had to go with the assumptions we've made.
Okay, great. Thank you, Giles.
That's the only question so far. So if anyone has any other comments, it doesn't have to be a question, it could be a comment. Please post it in the Q&A and we'll address them at the next pause.
Okay, brilliant, thank you. So I'm now going to hand over to representatives from Kennington Community Council. So first up is Alan Cooper. Alan, when you each go through your slides, if you can just give me the nod that you're ready to move on and who's coming next, so I can put the right person on the screen, that would be really helpful, so everyone knows who they're listening to. I'm just going to get you on the screen now, hopefully. 1 second. Oh. Technology. Bear with me. Oh, change role. Right. It's not letting me. Alan, do you want to start talking?
Will I start speaking?
I don't want to delay you. Sorry,
No,
I'm having a bit of a
that's
technical
fine.
hitch.
If you get me up, that's fine. But
Yeah, sorry.
it's people can hear. Yeah. Good evening. The next 4 slides will set out some of the thoughts of the Community Council. My name's Alan Cooper, and I'm going to be talking about the Council's strategic objectives. Then Councillor Mark Sylvester will explain how these objectives are starting to be delivered. He will be followed by Councillor Ellie Crook, who will focus on what we want to achieve at the particular BYBROOK-BOCKHANGER site. And finally, Councillor Shafi Khan will provide you with some of the highlights of the draft business case that you've just heard referred to by Len, which we've submitted to ABC. And then we'll pause at that point for some questions that may have come through on the chat that are directed towards us, and then we'll hand back to Rebecca. So to start with, the broad objectives we have as a council is to make Kennington a caring and supportive place to live, and we believe we'll do this by building a more connected community with strengthened social responsibility, and that in turn is going to mean we have to understand the needs of our increasingly diverse communities. And the survey that was conducted across the whole of almost the whole of the council area has given us a wealth of information on that. It was said earlier that there's a lot of information in these presentations to absorb. There's probably 10 times that information in the actual results of the questionnaire, and then our objective is to help meet these social and economic and health needs by working with ABC. So we have to build strategic partnership with ABC, but also with others. We have quite limited council tax income at the moment. It's of the order of £100,000 a year. So what we need to do is to use that to leverage investment from people with larger budgets, and that in particular in state-of-the-art play areas and a community hub for Bockhanger, but in many other things that we do. And we need to promote community-led groups. We've heard that antisocial behaviour and social isolation were big issues coming out of this questionnaire. So its community-led groups are at least as important as physical infrastructure. We believe we can also promote Kennington as the sporting centre of Ashford and the surrounding area, because we have so many clubs here already that are either Kennington-based Ashford clubs or local Kennington clubs, and some of these are listed on the slide. So I'll pass over now to Mark Sylvester, if I may, if he unmutes himself.
Thank you, Alan. I will just change the slides and hopefully bring Mark up on screen. Bear with me. Just makes it good if you can. There we go, Mark. You should be appearing now. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Also, as well as a community council, we have done many different things to help the community. We have done a community-led investment at Rylands Road play area, which is a park renovation group which has raised 20,000, with the community council grant of 5,000, where tomorrow the ABC cabinet are discussing a proposal to invest 1.1 million for a play regeneration programme in 3 key priority locations, 2 which are both Rylands Road and the Spear Point Pavilion recreation ground. Talking about the Spear Point Pavilion, there's been a gate installed in the main car park which is to help stop ASB in the area. There's also a defibrillator fitted there to and we're waiting for the information for it to go live. Hopefully you'll see a Facebook post soon. Also as well, working with the Ashford Borough Council, we hope to consider improving both the quality of play provision at the Spear Point Pavilion and the condition of the playing pitches themselves. We are also a community council that's given grants to the Pirates Canoe Club, Yacht Club, Ashley Hockey Club and the Kennington Fair Association, to name just a few. We are also liaising with the Ashford Bowls Club with their move to Conningbrook Park. Over to you, Eddie.
Thanks, Mark. I will just move down the slides. And then I will change Eddie on the screen. Change. There we go. Ellie, you are good to go.
Perfect. Thank you. So putting the heart back into Kennington, we as a council are going to provide excellent resources and opportunities for people to connect. We are also thinking of establishing a youth council to get the youth involved in leading to represent young people in the community. We also are going to build the Bockhanger and BYBROOK community to lead a more fulfilling and healthy life. We're also going to support growth and sustainability. It could be also a potential base for the Kennington Community Volunteers, Fair Share Food Bank and other community-led groups, as in for the Youth Council I mentioned earlier. Also, we need to spread out across the whole of Kennington into existing and new community use facilities, including the WI Hall, Scouts, the Scouts Hall, the Julie Rose and the Bowls Club. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. And you're handing over to Shafi, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right, just bear with me, Shafi. I'll just bring your slide up and get you on screen. There you go, you're ready to go. You're on mute.
Thank you, Ellie. And you have just heard the views from Ashford Borough Council and 3 Kennington community councillors, and believe you may be interested in the project to move forward. Hoping all goes well, we would like the residents to know Kennington Community Council are aiming to utilise the reserved budget of £35,000 to £45,000 to help with the necessary activities to commence at the opening. This can be done by the support of the residents, which is made of diverse community and culture. As suggested earlier, the groups will encourage to set up activities like IT training center, basic computer skills, homework cafes for younger generation and social gathering by creating youth club, which would assist in reducing antisocial behavior. The center, if used for the purpose and is able to generate funds for the upkeep and staffing strategy, could possibly benefit the residents and hopefully elevate the situation of loneliness, particularly in the elderly generation, who at times feel isolated due to their ill health and are unable to travel. Finally, Rebecca, are there any questions that you would like us to deal with it now?
We have had a question in the chat. I'm just having a quick look.
There are 2 questions in the chat, Rebecca, if I may jump in. So we have 2 questions. I'll read them both out and then we can just look at who will be the best person on the panel to answer them. And if anyone wishes to jump in, then please do from the panel. The 2 questions are: can you confirm what the options are here? For example, community hall or houses, and will we get to vote for a decision? And the second question is, there is a park just around the corner on Rylands Road. Will this be refurbished as part of this? Rylands Road was mentioned just now. I think we may be coming on to that a little later. So potentially, if the person who's asked that question could just bear with us for a moment, we will get to answering that as part of a subsequent slide. In relation to what the options are, Rebecca, do you want to sort of talk about what the process processes to date. I'm happy to jump in as well if you would find that helpful.
So just to confirm really that what we're saying, the way we're thinking about this at the moment is this is a whole consultation. This is part of the event today. So this whole process and consultation is open. So we're opening this up for a month from the date of today's event. And what we'll do is consider all the responses and all the feedback that we've had and use that to help inform the decisions and guide us to how we can best bring this site forward. So the question is it a community hall or is it houses? There are options on the table, but we have confirmed already this afternoon that for housing, it would be an affordable housing led scheme, and there are options around how that's delivered, but it would be a community space that's integral within a delivery of affordable housing units. There's no details about, what that looks like for definite. That's the whole part of today. What's the space going to be used for? What's the need? What's the aspiration? There's costs associated. There's all things around viability, materials, as Mark mentioned earlier. So there's lots of variables. There's no concrete decision. It's not a done deal, and that's why we want you to come back to us and say, our opinions have changed. The needs of the community has changed. This is what we want. This is what we need. How do we address this? And that's kind of where we're coming from, really. So we can't give you a definite decision today. That's the whole point of this process, is that we're talking to you, talking to the community council, and really getting an understanding of what's needed locally. Anything else to add, Mark?
I think I would just sort of say that if we do arrive at an in principle decision that it is to be an affordable housing led scheme, the actual drawings and plans for how that could look will need to be pulled together, and then an option will be put to the community for subsequent consultation, and that is how we would do it. So this is, as you say, Rebecca, it's the very beginning part of this particular part of the process.
But again, happy to take any additional comments or questions as we get towards the end of the slides.
And we will come to the Rylands Road question.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, Amanda will pick up that Rylands Road. So,
but Rebecca, can I just say, as I understand it, the way most councils work, you have a consultation and you have, various stages of a consultation, but you don't have, as it were, a plebiscite, yes or no to this proposal. It's a consultation.
Yes,
don't
exactly.
actually people don't go to vote on it because they vote their councillors.
Yes, as far as I'm aware, that's the way we're doing it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks to everybody from the Kennington Community Council. It's really appreciate you being here today and to share your views. It's really important, and it's to emphasise how we're working together with Kennington Community Council on this project. And that is very much a partnership working approach at this current time, which is really good to see. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, and if technology doesn't fail me. So hopefully you can see our ideas slide, and this outlines some thoughts that we have had about how we can use the survey feedback and how other community spaces have been focused elsewhere, just to give you a flavour of what a proposed flexible community space could look like and what it could offer to you as a local community. So we're continually referring throughout this presentation today as a provision of a flexible community space, and the key words here are flexible and space. Our proposal and our kind of offer to you in principle does not provide you as a local community with a community hall or a facility that would stand alone on the former site. As Mark has explained, this is not possible if the scheme is going to be progressed through Ashford Borough Council and our housing service. We're also focusing on flexible because we feel it's really important that the space is a benefit to a whole community, and that it can meet some, if not all, of the aspirations that we shared with you earlier within the presentation. And this slide is just to give you a flavour and some ideas to reflect upon and consider. So what do you need the space to do? Who will be using it? What income will it draw to make it sustainable? How can you link this space to what is already existing locally? So we've just put some ideas up there, and Alan and the community councillors mentioned the potential of a business hub. So is there space within this flexible community space to have, IT equipment, access to the internet, conveniences, so having toilet facilities, kitchen facilities, Obviously, parking is always a big issue, and that would be a big factor in consideration moving forward as to how you ensure that you've got adequate parking and access to such a community space. Could it be used for community events, community meetings? So again, it's just going back to this whole issue around flexibility, that it works for everybody, it's sustainable, and it's meeting your needs. But most importantly, it balances out and it complements what already is existing in your local area. So hopefully I haven't talked too fast through that. Apologies if
Rebecca,
I have.
can I just interject?
Yeah.
Shafi may appreciate the limelight, but he's still on screen, I think.
Oh, is he? Oh, so sorry. Sorry. This is technology and oh, there I am.
There you are.
Sure, Shafi's better on screen than me anyway. Right. So hopefully, we've talked a lot about what's existing and how we complement what's in your area. So there's a lot of information on this slide. I do appreciate that, but the purpose of the slide is to show you just what is on offer locally, and there's a lot on offer in Kennington and surrounding areas. And although it's not all doorstep availability to this particular area of Kennington, it is in reach of you. So when we consider the opportunity for the site, we come back to the issue of balance, how to avoid duplication of provision, and how you can offer flexible functionality for this community space whilst having access to and using other community facilities or activities that are local to you. So the questions for you to consider are there particular barriers that prevent you from using some of these community facilities that already exist? You know, what would the community space in BYBROOK and Bockhanger offer you that's different to these already? So it's thinking about that sustainability, that use, that functionality, and how you can link that and complement to what already exists to you in your surrounding areas. So we think that any community space provided needs to have someone to maximise the use of the space alongside making those links to the existing community facilities and activities. So what we've talked to Kennington Community Council about is that with this community space, it's going to take a dedicated person to kind of really coordinate what goes on within that community space, how it links to other community facilities, how you reduce those barriers in accessing the activities and the groups and the clubs, and what you want that space to be used for, because you know it's going to take a lot of time and effort to make sure those linkages are there and that there aren't any barriers to anybody accessing what they want to use at any particular time. So there is a lot of information on there, but these slides will be available, so you'll be able to have a look at these in more detail in your own time and reflect and feedback on those. So moving on, unless there's any questions, Mark, in the chat that I need to be aware of.
There's a point that's been made by Katie,
Yep.
which I will just read out. It's an expressed view. I don't think it's a question at this stage, but she says, I live on Beachholm Drive, and in my opinion, I think a community centre type building would be best, as the housing route I think would not be appropriate right next to a school. So thank you for that comment, and we'll obviously include that in the overall responses that we received to the consultation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. So as I advised previously, we've got two colleagues from Ashford Borough Council who will now run through with you information about the proposal for the play facilities. So that's referring back to the previous question around play facilities in Rylands Road. And so that will be Amanda Scott. And then we've also got Alison Oates, who will talk about the chess project, which we've referred to earlier in the presentation slides as well. So I will just move through the slides and I will bring in Amanda. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Rebecca, and evening, everyone. So I'm the Open Spaces Projects Officer for the Council, and I work in the Cultural Services team alongside Len. So separate to the consultation concerning the Bockhanger area, and this is a separate project, officers have brought forward a proposal for the Council to consider upgrading the outdoor leisure facilities at Rylands Road Open Space. And as Councillor Sylvester mentioned earlier, we are also looking at the open space on Spear Point as well. This proposal is based on audit work that we carry out to benchmark the condition of open space sites on a biannual basis. Plus, it's in response to the good work carried out locally to raise funds to improve the play area and the comments made at the last consultation event. As Councillor Sylvester mentioned earlier, this paper is going to Cabinet tomorrow to be heard, and we will understand the outcome of that tomorrow evening. If the Council agrees to upgrade the site, we will look to improve play for all age groups that is inclusive and accessible. And this would include swings, climbing frames, equipment for toddlers, and more challenging equipment for older children. We'd also look at other options, an outdoor gym area for one, and possibly a small multi-use games area to kick a football around. In addition to this, we'd also improve footpaths and outdoor furniture to make the area a more comfortable space for all to use. While the decision is yet to be made by the Council, if anyone on the chat wishes to put forward their comments or thoughts on this proposal, we'll be happy to hear from you at this stage. So that's everything from me, and I believe we'll pick up any questions that you may have after the next presenter.
Thanks, Amanda. Right, I'm just going to hand it over to Alison, and she's going to talk you through the chess project. And as Amanda said, we'll pick up any questions or comments once Alison's finished her slides.
Lovely, thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, all. My name is Alison Oates, and I'm the Community Safety and Wellbeing Manager at Ashford Borough Council. I manage 5 teams, but the team that's relevant to this is the Community Safety team. And I'm going to talk to you a bit more about the chess project. So if I could move to the next slide, please. So the reason the chess project came about, I was at a wellbeing symposium and heard a very inspirational lady talk about a public health project she had done where she worked with communities to improve their health and well-being. And I thought, could we use this process to look at tackling violence and combating antisocial behaviour within our communities? So I sought some funding, and the Kent Violence Reduction Unit kindly agreed to fund this project. And it was to fund this project in 2 areas. We thought about what areas to put it in. We know the town centre receives funding for other places, so I thought let's look a bit out of the town, and Bockhanger and Belvoir were some of the areas that we thought would be a good place to use this project. The funding is only for people up to the age of 25, which is why we've had to restrict the age of the people that can attend. So C3, Collaboration for Health, and myself are working together on this project, and then the next slide will explain what this project is. So this project uses a tool called CHESS, and that stands for Community Health Engagement Survey Solutions. And basically we bring people together, in this case it will be young people aged 16 to 25. We will brief them on the use of this app, and they will walk a set route around the area. And this is starting from Gerlach House, walking the main routes around the Bockhanger Square area. And they will answer questions on the app around safety, around how they feel in their environment. And then once all of that's done, we come back together and a community, in this case, young person's action plan will be put together. And I have funding set aside to support some of these projects and actions that may come out from this process. Thank you, Rebecca. So where we are at the moment, we've identified and met key local players. I did a presentation to the community forum some time ago. C3 have done some research. We've selected our communities, and the Bockhanger event is taking place on Saturday morning. So this Saturday morning. We currently have 18 young people that have volunteered to be part of this project. However, if you know anybody else that wishes to take part, I'll put my details, or ask Mark to put my details in the chat. they can contact me and we will add them to the list. Each young person that attends receives a £30 voucher, like a generic Love to Shop voucher, for their attendance as a thank you for becoming involved in this project. Once we've held the event on Saturday morning, all the data will be collected and we will meet again to formulate that action plan to improve Bockhanger for those young people. There may be some small actions that we can put in place straight away, or there may be some larger actions which involves looking for additional funding and how we support that process through for bigger and larger improvements. And then we implement those interventions. Thank you. So as I've said, that's where we are at the moment. I'm going to be putting some flyers into the shop at the Bockhanger shops tomorrow, so there'll be some flyers in there as well. But it is happening on Saturday. We have got young people signed up. Well, if you know anyone else in that age range that would like to earn £30 and also have a massive impact on their local community and have their voices heard as young people, then please encourage them to come along to Gerlach House at 9:45 on Saturday morning.
Great, thanks, Sally. And I'd really encourage anybody that's got, you know, young children or knows a young person that would like to be involved in this piece of work, to take Ali up on that offer and to get their details across to her. And I'll ask Mark to put Ali's email in the chat so that everyone's got access to that. And of course, if you're not sure, you can always email the Bockhanger email as well, and we can pick that up if you want to come through that route. Have we got any questions, Mark, for Alison and Amanda? Or more generally?
More general questions. We have a comment echoing the point that Katie made earlier. Somebody saying that they agree a community hall. Thank you for that. And a subsequent question saying, how can I get details for the next call? There was somebody saying they were sent these details from a family member and they did not know about the call today. I think the point with that one, Rebecca, is that we don't know at this stage how the next event will be held. We might be able to hold it in person. It may be a hybrid event. It may well be online. We will promote whatever we're doing as thoroughly as we can using our communications team, the Community Council website, our website. We actually had a banner on the homepage of our website today as well, so that people could click on there, and it's been promoted on social media, and it's also been, I believe, in our Kent Online as well, linked to the event as well. So that will be to be determined, as I see it, how the next event will be held. So at this stage we don't know whether that will be another virtual event or whether it will be an in-person event.
Thanks, Mark. And what we can do, if you want to keep updated on how things are going and make sure that you don't miss out on any opportunities to engage, if you drop us a line to that email, which will be on the final slide, then we can keep details of your email or contact telephone number. And then as we progress the project, as it moves forwards and we've got updates and information to share, whether that's generally or about an event, then we can do that with you and you won't miss out. So please do make use of that Bockhanger email to keep updated.
Another question has come in, Rebecca, if I may jump in. Councillor Spain has said there seems to be an assumption already made that the community facilities have to be integral to a single building on a fairly substantial site, and to avoid causing issues with residential use, surely the community facilities could be separated into another building on site. That seems to sort of straddle a few of the points that have been made by various speakers today. Is there anybody on the panel who would like to respond to that, or maybe best equipped to respond to that?
I don't know. Giles, have you got any comment or feedback to Councillor Spain in respect of what we've been looking at? Sorry to put you on the spot.
The point about it being integrated into the integrated into the housing scheme rather than separate is all to do with whether it can be delivered by the housing revenue account. We've already explained that the Ashford Borough Council General Fund is unable to fund it, so we're trying to find a way of being able to provide the space. Obviously, we will take advice and see whether there's other ways, but at the moment, the information that we've got tells us it needs to be integrated.
Thanks, Giles. And just to say, you know, that's what we've been considering in principle from a borough council or housing perspective. Obviously, it's for you as a community to decide, you know, and confirm and update what you feel that whole space should be used for and what's appropriate. And this is our proposal to you, and this is what we're sharing with you today. So we totally, you know, respect everybody's views and opinions, and we're happy that people are feeding back and putting those questions to us. And if we can't answer anything in a specific way today, then we will come back to you on that. But we are where we are, and we're trying our best today to share with you the background to the event, how we've come to the proposal that we've got to today, and how we can move forward. And that does all centre around you as local residents and the Kennington Community Council talking to us and, you know, keeping us informed and engaging with us as we move forward.
Rebecca,
Yep.
It's Alan Cooper here, because I'm not on screen.
Yeah, I can put you on.
Can I? Well, that doesn't matter. I think there's kind of an issue here, and it may not be something you can answer now. I think everyone understands that if you want a community facility which is largely or exclusively funded by the housing revenue account, it has to be integrated. I think the second question, though, is, does it have to be integrated into the scheme, or does it have to be integrated into a housing building? I think that's maybe what Dick on Spain is asking, because one could envisage, you know, hypothetically, you put a building in the middle and surround it with houses, it's integrated in the scheme. If you have to is that permissible? And as I say, you may not be able to answer that now. Is that permissible, or does it have to be physically integrated with part of the housing flats or whatever you're building?
So I can't say to you, you know, definitely yes or no to that answer, because that's information that we're seeking with our legal services team at the moment. The conditions around how you access and use funding from government is very complicated, and there is, you know, there's rules and regulations about how that's spent, and they're all considerations that we have to give, and that may restrict us in what our offer on the table is about how we can, through a housing led scheme, deliver a flexible community space. So, you know, and that's where we are, and that's what we've tried to explain so far. So that's why we've not come today with any, you know, any detailed drawings or any designs, because actually we just don't know. We're still getting information about what the funding can be used for and what that means for the scheme. And there are other variables, as we've mentioned, around the amount of funding and the cost of materials and everything else that's going on in the world at the moment, as to how we can deliver the scheme. So we can come back to people on that. That's a question that we'll take and that we'll feed back on. So thank you, Councillor Spain, for bringing that. I think it's really important to ask that question and to make it clear. So, you know, we do appreciate that, and we'll feed back on that. So thank you. Anything else?
Subsequent question from Councillor Spain. I would also say that, as you say, we're seeking information from legal colleagues around where the facility would sit, where that space would sit in terms of the general fund or the housing revenue account within the current council itself. Councillor Spain has followed up by saying he's concerned that the suggestion or assumption that the housing revenue account is the only way of funding the facility is narrowing the choices, and he thinks that may be a false assumption. He says there are other non-council sources that may be able to unlock the single building assumption. I
Right.
I think that may be something that needs to be taken back to the borough councillors outside of this meeting, and then further liaison with the Kennington Community Council myself, if we can do it that way. It will be something that needs to be considered formally by I believe by cabinet members in due course. They will receive an update on where things are at, and perhaps the views that are sort of being expressed can be included and incorporated within the report for members to consider. At that point that Councillor Spain has made there, we put that to members, elected members of the cabinet to consider those other options, and perhaps look at that with Councillor Spain going forward.
Great, thanks Mark. Right, I'm just going to move us on to the next slide and put myself back in. Apologies. Right, so this slide is a kind of you said as the community and our response. So simply put, the slide summarises the position that we're at today and the response that we've made to the key headlines that we have shared throughout the presentation this afternoon. So one of the comments from the feedback from the survey was lack of affordable housing locally. So we feel we're addressing that survey headline through considering the proposal for an affordable housing led scheme, tackling antisocial behaviour and reducing the anxieties about that locally, and how we can engage with young people more effectively in the area, which I feel is really important. And we're picking that up and working with Alison through the CHESS project. It sounds like a really great opportunity for the local community and local young people. So again, I would just encourage you to make those connections with Alison for the forthcoming event at the weekend. Another key headline that was taken from the survey was around the inadequate play facilities. So Amanda's talked about the decision that's going to be taken tomorrow night at the cabinet meeting, and the proposals for Rylands Road, and she's covered off what the suggestions are around what could be in the area for Rylands Road, and how that meets the needs of a range of ages across young people in the area. And obviously as the decision on that is made tomorrow night, then that will be fed back through the normal channels. And then community centre facility, obviously key feedback, key headline, and our response to that is, as we've talked through, is about the provision of a flexible community space. We don't know the details of what that could look like, what the size would be. We're just trying to talk around with you about what you need and how we can try and accommodate that through the best way possible, and making the best use of the funding in the legal parameters that we have. So again, happy to take any additional comments or feedback. We're not ending the consultation today. We've got a month from today. So please do take away everything that you've heard from today, digest it, and come back to us if you've thought about anything else since you've heard from us today. So we've just got a couple more slides, I think. So work to be done. So I'm going to ask Alan to, if he's happy to, because I know Alan and Sharon were going to talk through this final slide themselves together in such a way. So,
okay.
Are you happy to chat through it, Alan?
Yes,
do you want me
certainly.
to? Yeah,
no, that's fine.
Just put you up on screen. There you go.
Yep. The aim of this slide was really to put some of the issues out that people might want to respond to in the question room. It's clear that as Kennington Community Council, we need to work with Ashford Borough Council on this. Two things I think have come out tonight. One is it's not cut and dried what this could look like, but the second is it's not cut and dried that anything happens. So we have to keep making clear what we think are the needs of the community and how important we think those needs are to interest borough councillors, many of whom live presumably 20, 30 miles away from Kennington and have their own local interests. We need to do a lot of work ourselves in refining the business case and so on. One of the things we said from the outset is that this should be a needs-led project. Now, if anyone is looking at some of the needs that were reported in the slides earlier, and you think, look, you're not meeting these needs, then it's legitimate to say, should Kennington Community Council be investing in part of the infrastructure in order to, as it were, boost the money available, and do this by raising the tax or taking out loans from the Public Sector Loan Board? I don't know the answer to that question. People may say, yes, you do this. They may say, no, you shouldn't. But we do want to hear your view. We've not had any in-depth discussion on that, let alone made a decision. So we welcome views. I think that there are a lot of things to do, and we want lots of people to be involved. One of the things that was kind of missing from the previous slide of what was raised and what are we doing was social isolation. And I think what that emphasizes is this is not just an infrastructure proposal from our point of view. It has to be what you might call the soft infrastructure of maybe we need to employ someone even before anything is built to be a sort of social organizer who will work with community groups, build up more clubs and so on that people want, perhaps starting them off in other halls that are available in the area, but are something of a walk away. And so when this is built, if this is built, we're successful in getting it built, we have immediate usage that you can transfer these groups in, and we don't have a beautiful white elephant. I think that's really important. But I think, you know, we need questions and comments from those of you who have been following the presentation, and those of you who are watching this presentation as a recording later, because I think the intention at the moment is to keep that open at least until the end of October. But we as Kennington Community Council, we need continuous feedback over the next year or more.
Yeah, I would agree, Alan. It's by no means, you know, it's not we get to the end of October, we consider what we've got and, you know, that's it. It's, you know, this is an ever moving project. We really do need everybody's feedback and input. It's got to be whatever the outcome, it's got to be right for the whole community. And you're right, you know, it's got to be balanced. It's got to hit all the members of the community. It is about isolation, and apologies that was missed off the previous slide. There's lots of agendas to hit in Kennington and these two particular wards, and it's just finding the best fit and the best way to do that, but doing that together, doing that in partnership, listening to local views, listening to local voices, but understanding each other's position and what the limitations are, but, you know, what the opportunities are and how we can work together to achieve them, really, and to achieve the best outcomes for everybody, for the whole community. And not just now, moving forward, you know, we have a legacy, we have a need to leave a legacy for future communities and future generations of families. So, you know, it's not just about now, it's what comes in 5-10 years time as well. And we need to make sure that whatever we deliver and whatever we agree to, it's got longevity and it doesn't, you know, fall over 2 years down the line. And that's another consideration in terms of, you know, what you want and what the needs are now and what they are going forward. So, but we're more than committed to working with Kennington Community Council, local councillors and local community members. So please do engage and keep talking to us, keep talking to Kennington Community Council, because that's what we've asked for and that's what we want. So please don't feel you can't and you shouldn't. Any further questions, Mark, before I move on to the last slide?
Nothing fresh, Rebecca, no.
Okay, right. Just going to. Okay, so what's next? So as Alan's indicated, there's lots of work to do. And And as I've said, we are really committed to taking this forward. We know there's been frustration about the pausing of this work, and obviously, you know, a lot of that was out of our control due to the pandemic. And we're doing our very best now to reinvigorate and gain momentum again around this piece of work. So, you know, don't feel that we're not engaged and we're not committed, because we really are. And as our proposal said, you know, we're looking to address all the issues that we've identified through the survey. We've stated that we appreciate the survey's a couple of years old now. Things may have moved on, opinions may have changed, circumstances and needs may have changed. So this is why we need you to feedback and engage and talk to us. So there's been a lot of information shared with you today, a lot to consider, a lot to digest, and this is why we're committed to sharing the slides with you, some speaker notes so that there's some context, because not all the slides have got words on them. We'll share the recording with you as well, so you can listen to what we've all said today, and we'll likely put that back on the consultation portal where you found your link for the session today. So that will happen in the next couple of days, so just bear with us while we get the comms team to help us in getting all that information put together and put on the website. As Mark and I have said previously, the consultation is running to the end of October, so you can feedback. There'll be a short survey included with the information online, so you can complete that survey and email that to us, or you can email us direct using the bockhanger.engagement@ashford.gov.uk email address. So there's plenty of ways for you to contact us. You can give us a ring, pick up the phone, ring, you know, give us a ring, ask us any questions that you want to. For anybody who's unable to access online or has difficulty in doing that, then we're more than happy to share some printed copies of the information that's been shared today. So again, just give us a ring or drop us an email, or come through your Kennington Community Councillor or your local councillor, and we'll arrange that for you. We'll get that in the post for you. So the deadline is the 31st of October 2021. So there is a short delay in terms of me speaking and you hearing me. So I just want to make a final call out, really. Firstly, just to say thank you everybody for attending. We hope you found the information useful. And now is your final opportunity for today's session to post any final comments or questions. So I'll just pause for 10 to 15 seconds just to allow anybody to post anything further in the chat. I don't want to cut anybody off.
There's one further comment from Councillor Spain, who says he very much agrees with needs-driven being central to the success of this project, and believes a well-executed community cafe element could be critical in addressing social isolation. Yeah. And I don't think we disagree with that at all. We realise the importance of having access to that kind of facility in a social space, and what that can do for connectivity in a local community, how that draws people into a facility, and what that means. So yeah, that's all been part of our discussion to date. So that's great feedback that we're thinking along the same lines in that respect. And one final question, do you think that Ashford Borough Council as landowner might sell the site to an arm's length or third-party provider of community facilities, such as the Prince's Trust, so that the non-integrated building might go ahead?
Personally, I wouldn't be able to answer that question. That's something that I would suggest we'd have to take back and talk to relevant colleagues. I don't know, Mark, if you've got any thinking around that, but I'm not sure, to be honest.
No, I was wondering whether Len might have a view on that. I don't know if Len's still with us on the call.
I'm still with you, Mark. No, it's certainly an interesting option to consider, and one that's certainly worth sort of pursuing a bit further to understand how some of those external agencies may be able to take sort of a project like that forward. I wouldn't want to give a definitive answer now, but it's certainly something worth exploring and considering, so that it goes into the mix for members of the Borough Council, Community Council and residents to consider.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I'd agree with that.
Another question, can we assume that the new community centre is going to be much smaller than the old one? I think I think,
go on,
I think that is to be determined, because
yes.
We don't know at this stage how that will fit. Obviously, the comments that have been raised tonight about, you know, can consideration be given to a standalone building? It'll, as we've said a couple of times, the word viability, whether the finances will enable it to work. I think it is all to be determined. I think you know, that's all up in the air, and at the point when we are able to come back to the community with a proposal, then that will be the point that we can kind of have a look at size and so on. That would be my initial view. Again, we can consider that outside of the meeting and look back. I think it's too early to say, would be my view. I don't know if anyone else on the panel has a view.
Can I display my ignorance and ask a related question, which is, does anyone know what the size, the ground size was? I know it was quite tall, but does anyone know what the size of the old one was?
I don't personally. I don't know. Giles, do you know off the top of your head, or rough idea?
Not off the top of my head, but I can find records which will be able to give us give us those measurements. You have to remember it had a main hall, office, and storage facilities, yeah. So yes, we can find the information. I just don't have it off the top of my head.
There's a supplementary question that's been asked by the person who just posed the previous question. If the new community centre was going to be smaller than the old one, then you'd not have the space to run all or even some of the proposed activities. There is, the person says, they believe, a contradiction between aspiration and practicality, and that's something that we'll obviously look at going forward to make sure that any space is kind of fit for purpose, and that's really the point of the consultation. I would just say as well that we can actually, after the event, download all the questions so that they're not lost once the event itself is complete. So we can download the questions, and we'll make sure that we take them back, and you know, we are able to consider them.
Yeah. And I would say that comes back to that slide around where we talked about what's available locally as well. So it's just about making sure there's that balance and the connectivity between what's going on in the wider area of Kennington and indeed into the town centre, and then what the needs are locally and how we can sort of work between the two to get the right offer. So it's nothing's off the table. It's just making sure that we're not over providing or under providing, and that the space is going to be sustainable. I think that's critical. You know, it's got to have longevity, it's got to have sustainability, and that's kind of the angle that we're coming from. But as Mark said, we have access to all your questions. Quite happy to publish those as part of the document information if people would want me to. You know, I know you can't obviously say yes, but you can do a thumbs up in the chat or a yes to confirm. But I'm quite happy to, when we download that report, include that as part of the paperwork online, so that people can see that their questions were recorded and that we are taking them and using them as part of the overall feedback. So I'm quite happy to do that for you. So before we finish, I just really wanted to say, firstly, thank you to everybody who's attended from home or from work. We really appreciate you being on the call. We hope that we've provided you with some good information, and we've alleviated any fears about you know, what's going on, and that things are already set in stone and a decision's been made, because it really hasn't. This is, you know, part of an ongoing consultation process and engagement process with you as a local community. I also wanted to extend my thanks to Sharon, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, but has put a tremendous amount of effort and time into working on this project and working with colleagues. To my colleagues from housing, culture, property, again, thanks for your time. Really appreciate your time and input and your continued support of the work that we're doing to make sure that we're getting this right. And also thanks to Kennington community councillors who are on the call today and represented and have been engaged more widely in the event and the lead up to this. you know, appreciate everybody's time and commitment, and that you're continuing to work with us on what we're doing. So I think we've come to the end of the event. I'm going to wait 10 seconds and then I will end. So again, if you have any final comments to make, now's your time, and then we will close the session. So thank you again.